There's a new patch, possible upcoming classes in the future, and how to navigate the Pug community. Let's go. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, the highest form of casual. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catching me whenever I'm live. Patch 11.0.7 drops next week, and maybe you decided already, maybe you want to know if it's a patch worth checking out in case you're on the sidelines. I'm going to break down the high-level bits so you can decide whether to stay or skip. First off, there's the zone, Siren Isle. If we were to fully dehumanize it, that is, take out all the adventure and the story experience, we just have a zone to farm up stuff like catch-up gear. It's going to be fairly fast as we can fully target the kind of gear we want to buy for our main or alt using a currency that can be shared across the warband. So it's going to be great for alts and new players and those looking for another stop on their adventures who might be less interested in group content. But if you've graduated beyond veteran class gear, there's a weekly quest to pass out extra champion gear, but that's after you've vendored everything else. There's a ring called Circe's Circlet that's earned and then powered up over time. This will interest folks who want a new gimmicky piece of gear, but sophisticated players will be more picky. History's on my side on this one though, I think, but the patient players can probably wait until the ring can be more easily powered up and, more importantly, rebalanced to be useful during Season 2. There are lots of cosmetics to obtain from mounts to transmog and more. Odds are this zone will be included in a grand meta achievement we'll see later in the expansion. But the nature of this zone is very evergreen. The days of Korthia in Shadowlands, those are far behind us. We're not going to feel locked in and forced to show up every day because we want that mount or that piece of powerful gear. But if we want to go on a mad killing spree one weekend, cool, it's going to pay off. Let's leave the zone and move on to the Turbulent Timeways event, which isn't even happening the day of the patch. According to the PTR calendar, that starts January 7th and ends February 25th, and it basically extends this whole time walk and availability thing even further out. An expansion will be featured each week, and participating throughout is gonna probably award the Timely Buzzbee mount. Also keep in mind the Time Walking vendors have been refreshed, offering all new rewards and appearances to work for. Watch, one day they might even add more stuff to these vendors for player housing, so even if it's still a ways off, consider being a bit more picky about those possible, maybe hopefully purchases as opposed to picking up the 9th color of that one mount. Also not happening this week, but a month from now, January 14th, Plunderstorm returns. Unlike Siren Isle, this is not going to be evergreen. According to the PTR calendar, it goes on until February 18th, and it features a store instead of a reward track so folks playing can target what they want and then hope and pray the rest eventually shows up on the trading post. If you're interested in those kinds of rewards or the joy of Plunderstorm gameplay, come through and I'll see you at the graveyard landing spot. Or actually don't be there. I'm just trying to get my quick plunder before I get slapped back into the lobby. And by the way, one of the big changes for Plunderstorm, it looks like we might be able to queue up for it while logged into our characters. Don't hold me to that though, we're gonna have to see how all this works in a few weeks. Of course, those of us into the story will get that too, along with some possible encrypted story bits we won't know until the time comes. It could be there's some follow-up disc-related quest that teaches us more about Azeroth's history, or maybe the Horde and Alliance are finally done warming up the beach, right? Some would say this is a skippable patch, and frankly, they're right. We've been seeing this philosophy manifest since Dragonflight with mid-patches that, they offer cool stuff, but if we decide to slack off or just skip it, it's not the end of the world. It's improved since then too. Consider how before the rares in Forbidden Reach were really tough, or they just took way too long to farm up solo. It gave that feeling of missing out because it got tougher with fewer people present over time. Later patches though, they chipped away at this feeling, and now this is where the feedback's taken us. We have these activities and things to collect now, or later, or years from now, but not Plunderstorm. The nature of that just won't work as an always-on event. It would be like waiting for those damn Legion invasion scenarios, remember those? Except we have to wait for 40 people to show up as opposed to 2 or 3. No way, man. And yeah, it's still a thing. Yeah, I'm still doing them because there's a shield transmog, naturally. There are also big changes to how we earn crests coming next week with the patch, and barring more changes, it's going to be what we can expect in Season 2. In a way, it's too little too late, but also a very exciting thing to look forward to in the next season. Let's do a breakdown, and I'll throw up a chart on screen. Over in Mythic Plus World, more crests will drop for timed keys, up to 20 depending on the bracket and key level. The tougher the key, the more crests you get. Also, the penalty for not timing the key has been reduced heavily. Before this, if you didn't time a key, you only got 5 crests. And psychologically, that demotivates a lot of people from wanting to continue on when the going seems tough. It's obviously not the only factor that makes people leave keys, but this is one big contribution. Next week, the penalty for completing the key under time is only 4 fewer crests than what you would get, according to this chart. Clearing a 7 will give 18 runes if timed, and 14 if not. Clearing an 8 will give 12 of the equivalent quests if timed, just like now, and 8 if not, instead of 5. I've been hearing it a lot. I know people have mostly suggested keys should no longer downgrade instead, but I'm not so sure it'll give the results they expect. A downgraded key affects only one person, that's the person holding the key. The other party members wouldn't be affected by this change at all. Meanwhile, if the person holding the key made the group and their intent was to push, as in time the key, they're fully empowered to, I guess, take their ball and go home, so to speak, if it doesn't seem like the dungeon's gonna time. Like, oh no, that one DPS didn't do great on the 3rd pull of the dungeon, let's replace him and then restart the dungeon, sorry guys. Like, that sort of behavior, it would feel like the right thing to do, and the key holder would be like, hey, you know, it's because my time is important. Anyway, we're talking about good things coming, and there's more happening with crests. The change coming that'll affect everyone, not just Mythic Plus World, is that the cost of trading up crests is being cut in half. You know how you can trade in all those weathered crests for carved, and then runed, and then gilded? Before, it cost 90 of the old crests to get 15 of the higher one. Basically, the value of this trade is going to be doubled. In a way, it's as if we're getting more crest drops, but for a more specific situation. It's still awesome though, it lets us climb to that next plateau even faster. Notably, it's a way for people who don't get new gear to be able to just craft them instead with more crests available. And yet there's still more. The nascent gilded crest used for the highest level of crafting, it used to require 90 of these gilded crests to make, and that's being brought down to 60. Now this is huge for the kind of player trying to get the best gear, but isn't able to break into plus 10 keys or mythic raids. Between this and the overall increase in crest income and the lower cost of trading them up, it's going to feel very natural for players towards the end of this season to focus very heavily on crafted gear to raise their item level. It's good for them, it's good for the player economy. However, there are consequences, which actually might be a little bit bad if this is left alone for Season 2, and here's why. There's a reason why the best crafted gear needed 90 of those gilded crests to make, and it's because in this season, peak item level has been more closely aligned than it ever has been in the game, with crafted gear being only 3 item level lower than the best mythic pieces from raids or dungeons. Because of that, the cost of crafting these went up to the equivalent of how many gilded crests it takes to access myth item level and then max it out, which is about 90 crests. With the cost being brought down to 60, we can identify this small oversight where I actually may not want to upgrade any hero gear past 4 out of 6. My gildeds are better spent replacing that hero gear with crafted gear. Of course, it doesn't work in every case like with trinkets or gear with special effects, but in a world of Warcraft where we have seasonal caps and we want to spend our currencies carefully, some people are going to be mindful of this, and I'm not so certain it's great design to willfully have people ignore upgrades. We've seen the WoW team enjoy telling people that, hey, they could just put something on right away without too much extra thinking. But at the same time, we are edging our way to more cutting edge difficulty, so maybe this is okay, and all I'm doing here is pointing out the upcoming strategy. Are Titanic tinkers on the way? Well, that's the buzz since a leaked survey started making the rounds talking about possible future WoW classes. Now, I didn't leak it, and you can find the untranslated images over at the Chromie fan site. I'm coming at this though with some leak season energy, but this is pretty exciting. Not just what we're seeing, but what it also means at a high level. Anyway, let's look at the highlights courtesy of Enriff, who posted a translation over on MMO Champion. There's a tinker class with an emphasis on Titan technology. They might be able to DPS or heal, even tank. Naturally, necromancers are here and probably high on people's list, but who's to say this also can't be a Death Knight spec as a plate caster? This one also threw me off, a bard class based on Azeroth's Radiant Song. I'd normally imagine a different kind of bard, but definitely not one who can apparently tank too. Some of these other quote classes feel less like a class and more like a specialization, like gunners feel like a hunter or a rogue specialization. Astrologian seems to be a bit too similar to a boomkin. Witches seem like they can be an offshoot for warlocks. Celestial Lancer says more bouncy warrior to me. The battle mage is basically describing a shaman. The apothecary seems kind of interesting, like I can imagine there someday being another support class or spec. And something on this list has got to turn into something like another specialization for demon hunters, like maybe Spellbreaker or Warden. That'd be a weird one, but sure, why not? There are two trends we can identify with these classes. One is that we're seeing all these new different themes that have come to the world of Warcraft ever since the old RTS days. I'm talking about the reimagination of death magic and Drust magic and even order magic. It's cool to see because we're seeing the WoW universe grow, but the other trend we can identify, it's the lean towards Titan cosmology. Bards are themed after this Radiant song. We got Celestials and space and Titan constructions and technology. A new class typically comes every few expansions. Recently we had Evokers from Dragonflight that followed Demon Hunters and Legion. What's listed on the survey are concepts. They're very early ideas that might be in some form of early development. I mean, writing down notes and sketches is a form of early development, by the way. But based on the list, I don't anticipate this new class being introduced until at least the last Titan, which I imagine is going to have lots of Titanic and cosmic themes, and new classes have had a very strong tie into the expansion they're introduced in. So what stands out to you in a good or a bad way? Like, call me a basic bitch, but I'm a big fan of the Necromancer and the Tinker, as well as anything that could be possibly a cloth-based tank. I'm a big fan of this. I think it'd be really cool to have a tank based around magical mitigation. The other week, I said I wanted to start pushing a more social agenda in World of Warcraft. I'm not talking about politics or class wars, even though paladins would totally win, but I mean to help improve the culture around grouping. Blizzard's doing its part to chip away at this by softening the blow when a key isn't going to time, and to help players at certain levels to get past that gearing plateau. The rest is kind of up to us to treat each other better and remind ourselves that, hey, we're human. I've made it clear that while I believe in this cause, I'm also just all talk, because I'm talking about this stuff from the safety or the pedestal of my own guild bubble. But what I can do as a creator is put a spotlight on communities and individuals who are actually putting in the work to make the grouping side of World of Warcraft more welcoming. I mentioned this group before, but I want to take a few extra minutes to talk about WoW Made Easy. It's a Discord channel for the North American region. They've been around for years and are focused on helping people find groups for keys at any level, while filtering out or pre-screening those who might stir up drama or otherwise make grouping feel unpleasant. The efforts are paying off, and they've been busy. In the past week, for example, across their Looking for Group channels, 10,000 messages have been shared with a regular online presence of 20,000 members. In case you're wondering, this is not a sponsored thing. I'm not being paid, or I've never been paid to promote their channel. Now, they describe it as a guild of tens of thousands of people, while I happen to look at it like this pocket dimension, this kind of screened version of the pre-made group tool. So let's talk through how it works. The first thing you want to do is get into the channel. There's a link in the video description, and you can just walk right in. Once you're in, take a look at the dungeon section and choose the key level range you want to do. Here you'll see folks posting their keys, looking to fill a group, and the key level, the expectation, and most importantly, a password. So you come in here first looking for posts, and then when you see this information, go in game and plug this in and the password to get in. If there are multiple people in that same group, then yes, you may be subject to being chosen or maybe not chosen, but at least you filtered out everyone else who happens to be outside of this bubble. Of course, you can do the same. You can make your own room and password, then post that information inside their Discord channel, then just wait. At first glance, it's like, okay. It's pretty much just like the pre-made group tool with extra steps. What's the difference here? The difference is with the rules, which are designed to protect their community, and also it makes their intentions clear. WoW Made Easy is not a carry group. It's not where you seek out a free ride. It's where you play the game, where you win or you lose, but you learn in a more friendly and relaxed environment. If you're doing poorly, hey, that's part of the game. That's just one thing. If you're calling out flawed tactics or you want to point out corrections, hey, that should be okay too. And when the going gets tough, then folks gotta talk it out and everyone needs to agree to end the key. But if you cross that line with name calling and cursing and rage quitting or other unsportsmanship like attitudes, you're likely to get reported and banned from the channel. cutting off access to this walled garden. You can also report bad behavior on the channel, just include information and screenshots, and then let the team do the rest. The last big rule is that people doing these runs must be made up of 100% WoW Made Easy members. There is no pugging people from outside this group or bringing in people from like your guild or your friend list unless they're also part of WoW Made Easy and they're in good standing. Worst case scenario, if everyone in the current group agrees, then cool, then you guys can seek out a pug via Group Finder tool. I strongly suggest visiting this channel to at least see where things go, but there are a few things to keep in mind, and these are my takes after talking with the channel's owner, who goes by the name Boomeroo. WoW Made Easy is a community of people. It's not a service to suit your convenience or to take for granted. According to Boomeroo, larger mentions or bumps that have come from the likes of Max from Team Liquid or Quasi and so on, they've had a negative effect on the community. I definitely know how it feels to have a bunch of new people show up and accidentally cause a bad stir because the culture of the community goes through this disruption. Normally, WoW Made Easy deals with 1 or 2 tickets a day dealing with bad actors or trolls, etc. But when there's a bump from these creators, that can go up to 25, even 50 a day. So me talking about it, am I actually hurting their channel? Of course, I'd like to think no, and that's why I want to keep stressing before you head over there, these communities and guilds, the people on your friends list, they're not simply there to serve your needs. In a place like WoW Made Easy, the focus isn't simply about meeting the dungeon time, it's about having a good time, which isn't necessarily the same thing. The folks there aren't interested in putting up with rotten attitudes. And it doesn't always come from that elitist jerk either. It's also the noob who refuses to learn in a way that comes off in its own brand of being unwelcoming or even hostile. In both cases, it's both this failure to communicate and emotional immaturity. The freewheeling of the unfiltered group finder tool allows for that sort of behavior to fester. Guilds are great if you can get into one and if you can deal with the more personal investment. Communities like WoW Made Easy are between that. It's a filtered group finder. You're free to join. You just gotta follow the basic rules, but more importantly, help enforce them, because these pockets of World of Warcraft are worth protecting. That's the show, and I'm going to leave you with a question. Are you going to drop by for this coming patch? Are you going to no-life it? Are you going to sit it out until Season 2? Share your thoughts in the comments. And now let's give a big thanks to the folks who are watching live on streams, whether it's the live or the VODs. I see y'all. My appreciation to the fellow patrons and to you, viewer. You fed the algorithm. I appreciate you. Now all you got to do is hit the like button, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.